The biggest myth is that you have all of these unqualified people that are getting these big positions just because they are, checking a box. Totally untrue. If you really want a successful culture, that culture has to be inclusive, right? If the culture is not inclusive, it's not going to be successful. The reality is all of the best and the brightest ideas are not monolithic. It's not going to come from just one group. We all just get 24 hours in a day, but how are you going to use your 24 hours? And I want to encourage you to stop doing the things that no longer bring you joy. Don't do it just because you think you should. Your coach is like the person that's your guide to help you with strategies, to help you recover if you make mistakes. It's just something that I think a lot of people can benefit from. So the one thing I would have done differently was definitely.
Well, good evening, Ms. Deloria.
Hello.
It's so exciting to have you in studio today.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Would you please just give me two facts about yourself and tell me a little bit about ACE?
Okay, absolutely. I'm Deloria Nelson-Streete, president of Authentic Culture and Engagement Solutions, also known as ACE. I am someone who is authentic, courageous, and I just want everybody to live their life to their fullest, to really figure out what their strengths are and to use them and share them with the world. I'm really passionate about company cultures being ones that are authentic, accepting, transparent, where people can come together, do their best work, and contribute not only to the company, but feel good about themselves and what they contribute.
What inspired you to make the transition from being in corporate HR to now being a consultant for corporations?
Sure. I just think it was time. I mean, I loved my career. I spent about 25 to 30 years in corporate human resources, employee relations, DEI. And I think I had impact and made a difference. But there were a couple of things that were calling me. One was more freedom and flexibility, of which you can have as an entrepreneur. And the other thing was really being able to have more impact, to not just impact the employees in my company, but to be able to coach and impact individuals and different corporations. I like lots of change and doing different things, so I think it's pretty exciting to have different clients with different visions and goals and backgrounds.
If you could go back and give yourself one game-changing piece of advice, what would it be?
Hire a coach. Yeah, it would be hire a coach. People used to say, man, you're such a great coach. I think I was probably more of a cheerleader. I didn't really know the elements of coaching and how, not just structured, but what the end goal is. But now that I'm a certified coach, I get it, right? And as you try to maneuver corporate America or whatever the organization is, your coach is like the person that's your guide to help you with strategies, to help you recover if you make mistakes. It's just something that I think a lot of people can benefit from. So the one thing I would have done differently was definitely hire a coach.
It's amazing. Now, word on the street is you just had a book that released.
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about rest, resilience, and resistance?
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. So it's Rest, Resilience, and Resistance, a journal that invites you to take off your cape and save yourself, right? I kept hearing all of the chatter about rest and, that women specifically, because the book is kind of for women. Anybody could benefit from it, but, I say sis in the book a lot. It's easy to say we're going to rest, but a lot of people don't know how to rest, right? Because we have been conditioned to work hard and to be selfless and to keep pouring into other people, even when you're pouring from an empty cup. So I kept being awakened at 3 a.m. and something was like, it sounds good, but what are the mechanics? How can people execute that? And so I thought, you know what? A guided journal would really be helpful. And the reason I did a guided journal is because I know that one size doesn't fit all. And I'm not going to just say, this is what you do to rest. I want you to do the self-exploration by answering questions about what brings you joy, what causes you frustration, what are some things, if you didn't have any limitations, you would do. So you can kind of start reconnecting and discovering yourself again. And then it also has an action plan section as well as a wins for the week, because I don't want you to just get excited. I want you to take some action so things can change. And then I want you to celebrate the wins that you make as you go on this journey to self-discovery. Also, my definition of rest is reclaiming energy, self confidence, and time, right? So it's not just about sleep, although that kind of rest is important.
Yes.
We all just get 24 hours in a day, but how are you going to use your 24 hours? And I want to encourage you to stop doing the things that no longer bring you joy. Don't do it just because you think you should, because if you took back some of the things that you really don't want to do anyway that you're not engaged in, you would find more time to be intentional and spend time doing the things that you love.
Can't argue with that. Can you, what is the 3R leadership model and who is it designed for?
Sure. So the 3R leadership model is a spin-off, offshoot of derivative, if you will, of the book. I'm a pretty creative thinker, and I was thinking about how much rest, resilience, and resistance could help people as like a personal success recipe. And I said, you know what? Let me tease this out, because I think there may be something here that corporations, organizations, leaders could really glean from. And so as I thought about the 3R model, which is rest, resilience, and resistance, I started thinking about how can it be used in an organizational setting. So under rest, I thought about psychological safety, right? Of really being able to make mistakes and feeling safe to be yourself. I thought about of productivity over burnout, right? What are some things we can do to really ensure that we have a healthy workforce and that people are productive and joyful because they are not burned out?
Yeah.
When I thought about resilience, I mean, change is everything, but you have to have a resilient team that as things change, as challenges happen, they can be agile enough to respond, right? Resilience is, knock down 5 times, get up 6. And so a really important part of a successful team is their ability to be resilient. When I think about resistance, I think about resisting the same old, or resisting the status quo of doing things in the same way. Why can't you have ethics and integrity, and of why can't you have really a values driven workforce where all the decisions you make align with the values that you have? Because I think all of that together is going to create a dynamic workforce of people that are committed, are joyful, and can really contribute at high levels. So I really started thinking, I said, you know what? These 3Rs would really be a great success model for companies and organizations. So I'm really excited about that.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from working with clients as a contractor as opposed to being an employee?
Yeah, I think what I've learned is the buck stops with you, but you also can create some amazing things as well as relationships. I have found that if you really listen well, understand what that client needs, you can build things. And if you have long-term relationships, which is what I go for. I have 2 or 3 clients that I've been working with for 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
I don't want to kind of do a drive-by, right? Because cultures don't change overnight. So if you can really understand what they need and guide them, can be agile enough to change as you go, it makes a big difference. I was an employee for a long time and I enjoyed it. There were certain benefits, but there were also certain barriers. And so I think the biggest thing is the flexibility of time and of being creative and figuring out the best way to approach any challenge or situation.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit. Can you tell me what inspired you to create Ace Academy, and then a moment, maybe spotlight a moment that affirmed that, or that gave you that feeling like this is really needed?
Sure. So ACE Academy is an online learning platform that is made up primarily of micro learnings or micro courses. And when I say micro courses, it's courses that are 15 minutes or less of. We have over 500 in ACE Academy. We have topics like stress and burnout, communication, career management, project management, emotional intelligence. The list goes on, right? But what I discovered was sitting in front of a computer for an hour to take a class, it doesn't really work as well. And so I was doing research, and the studies were saying that micro courses are used 17% more than the other courses. It's also really good for just-in-time learning, and I'd love to give you an example. So just say it's a community-based organization, and we have volunteers, and we're getting ready to go into or welcome guests from another country.
Yeah.
And so you have 15 minutes and you go, let's take this course on cross-cultural communication, right? So it's top of mind, some of the things you should think about, some of the do's and don'ts, so you feel prepared as you go out. So for me, ACE Academy is an opportunity for smaller companies or nonprofits that may not have $1 million training budget to be able to provide quality training for their employees. And we know that retention is a lot of about what you learn. A lot of people want to learn and grow, and that gives companies an opportunity to provide that without the big budget that may come with different kinds of training. So I definitely feel like it's the right thing. I have a small nonprofit that's using it, and they're thrilled about it, and they keep asking for more modules. So that helped me to know that it was the right target.
It's amazing. You have all these wonderful products. Can you tell us how to find the book, how to find Ace Academy?
Sure. So you can find the book on Amazon.com. If you just type in Rest, Resilience, and Resistance, a journal, it'll pop up. It'll be on other outlets soon, but right now you can get it on Amazon. As far as ACE Academy, if you go to my website, ACE Solutions Group, there's a tab there, or you actually can just do, I think, ACE Academy at ACE Solutions Group, and it will pop up and you can see the different course offerings. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not going to say that's where I live, but I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Deloria Nelson-Streete, and Facebook, Deloria Stewart Nelson-Streete.
Okay. So this is refreshing to hear that you're so excited and so passionate
Oh,
about
yeah.
teaching companies and organizations about diversity and how to make it their superpower. But there's a lot of news going on right now about DEI
Sure.
supposedly going away.
Right.
How do you think that removing these initiatives could affect funding and support for minority-owned businesses?
I think they can have an impact but I think the really smart companies aren't really going to go away from it, right? Of Is it going to be a standalone, and is it going to stand out as much as it has in the last 3 or 4 years? Probably not. But I'm okay with that. Sometimes it's window dressing. You say all these things, but you're not doing it. And sometimes there are companies that are doing it, but they're not talking about it a lot. If you really want a successful culture, that culture has to be inclusive, right? If the culture is not inclusive, it's not going to be successful. The reality is all of the best and the brightest ideas are not monolithic. It's not going to come from just one group, right?
Yes.
The way a person looks, who they love, who they worship, none of that has anything to do with their talent or their ability to go above and beyond or create great products. So I think smart companies know that it's a game changer and they're not going to stop it. Now, are some of them trying to stay out of the crosshairs? Absolutely, right? Because there is a lot of propaganda about it. But I think, especially the companies that I work with, they're like, we are going to stay the course because we know it's a good course. And in reality, there's always been ebbs and flow, right? There were times that it's been talked about for 25, 30 years that, we came up with initiatives and did really good. There are times they pulled back. And I think the last big bubble was in 2020 when George Floyd was killed.
Yeah.
So a lot of people started doing it more. I think it brought a lot of awareness because there were for some people, if it doesn't impact them, they don't really try to understand it. So I do think there was a group of people that didn't understand the systemic nature of whether it was racism or sexism or homophobia and how that was keeping people out.
Yes.
I think for the last 5 years, they've learned it now. So if they don't call it DEI, I don't necessarily care, but I just want to make sure that the company is inclusive
Yeah.
and that equitable and people can do their best work and not fear not having opportunities because of what they look like or who they love.
Yeah. It's really smart. It's really cool. I'm excited to actually work with the companies that you work with. It feels like you're really trying to establish an environment that's empathetic to everyone's
Absolutely.
needs.
Absolutely.
So, what would you say is the biggest myth about diversity in corporate spaces? The things that just need to be
Yeah,
shut
the
down.
biggest myth is that you have all of these unqualified people that are getting these big positions just because they are, checking a box. Totally untrue. I mean, I've been working in corporate America over 30 years, and I don't know who all of these unqualified people are. I just really don't. That is probably the biggest farce. What I've seen is actually the opposite. I've seen that to get that same opportunity, that person that was different, regardless of the dimension of diversity it was, they usually had to be more talented. They usually had to have more education, more support, and definitely check a lot more of the boxes to get the same opportunity. So a lot of it is propaganda. It's made up, but unfortunately, for some people, they keep saying it enough, people will believe it because people don't always want to do their own research. But if all you got to do is really look in corporate of boardrooms, look in spaces and see where the majority is, the majority has not shifted that much, right?
Yes.
So it's just urban legend, but there's very little, if any, truth to it.
So we only got a few questions left, but I want to kind of focus on this. I want to stay in that diversity space.
Sure.
What mistakes do you think organizations are making knowingly or unknowingly that push away diverse candidates?
Right. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes things can get so hot politically that companies want to tiptoe around it and not really want to deal with it. And I tell my executives and people are not politics, right? But politics, they do impact how people think and how they feel, and it can stoke either confidence or fear. So with all of the talk about DEI and things being unfair or changing, I think a smart company would make a statement, right? It doesn't have to be a political statement, but a statement that says, listen, we value you. We're glad you're here as a part of our company. As long as you're here, we're going to treat you fairly. We're going to give you equitable opportunities, and we're going to make sure that your voice is valued. Something that simple could reassure people. Like you could hear like the collective, like,
Yes.
and sometimes companies don't do it because they're afraid. And, it's not about perfection, it's about progress, but being transparent and saying, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to make moves that ensure that everybody can do their best work.
Last question. How can an employee know whether a work culture is going to set them up for success or failure?
Yeah. I don't know if a culture sets you up for success or failure, but there are certain cultures that you can thrive in and certain cultures you can die on the vine in, right? It's just, it's like relationships. All cultures aren't for all people. So one of the things I think you need to know is, look in the mirror, know yourself, right? What kind of environment do I work well in? Do I like an environment that's really, really structured? Or do I like a more creative environment? Do I like an environment that's very authoritarian and it's very, step by step by step, or it's kind of more free flowing? If you got a good idea, throw it out. So the first thing is to know what type of culture you do well in. The other thing is to do the research so you understand what kind of culture you're joining. And not just the HR people. No shade to my HR peeps, but recruiting is sales, right? If they're telling you about the company, they're telling you all the good stuff. It's kind of like Facebook, right? It's the highlight reel.
Yes.
So if you can find people that work for that company, talk to them, ask them, look at Glassdoor, and do your best. I think these are some indicators of whether it's a culture that you will succeed in. If you can go, if you can be yourself, if you can answer questions, if you can ask questions, if you can contribute, and people are like, oh, that was a good question, and people are excited about, tell me more. I like that idea. I didn't. That's an indication that you are a good fit for that culture. If it's the opposite, you ask a lot of questions, everybody's silent, you want to know about promotions, opportunities, where you can do more, and people are like, just wait your turn, you just got here. You can tell. I just think the thing is we have to tell ourselves the truth about what we see and feel.
Yes.
This intuition is real, and then do something about it. Expiration dates are not just for milk, right? They're for work relationships and personal relationships. And you stay in relationships longer than you should, then it's going to turn out bad and it's not going to serve you or the organization.
Yeah. So I want to pivot because you've given us all of this great information. You've talked about these wonderful products. So before I let you go, just tell us one more time, where can we find the book? How can we connect with you?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Of Rest, Resilience, and Resistance, a journal of Amazon.com, of Deloria Nelson-Streete, LinkedIn, Deloria Stewart Nelson-Streete of Facebook, and ACE Academy. If you go to my website of ACE Solutions, then you can get to ACE Academy.
Nice. So if you would, for me, I want to like take a personal moment with you, if you don't mind.
Sure, I don't mind.
Okay. I want you to close your eyes and think about your next big accomplishment.
Okay.
Once you've found that thing, I want you to look into the camera and just congratulate yourself on making that achievement.
Yeah. Congratulations of 10 of the people that you've coached are now executives, and 10 of the companies that you've coached have dynamic cultures, and they've been selected for, one of the best places to work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This has been such a refreshing interview. I appreciate you giving us the time today.
Sure.
And it's been amazing to learn about ACE and all of its forms and iterations. We wish you continued success going forward.
Thank you. I've enjoyed spending time with you as well.